Story 1. I briefly sold whole life insurance due to being desperate for a job. They marketed burial insurance to elderly people. These were policies anywhere from $5,000 to $20,000. What I found difficult was, 1. Everyone I talked to was old and unhealthy. This means the policies were expensive. 2. If the client was really unhealthy, which 80% of seniors with the medications they take were, the whole life policies didn't kick into full effect right away. I think it was like 4 years before they'd get 100% payout. A lot of the times, the policies were so expensive that by the time they paid for 4 years to get full coverage, they paid in more than the policy pays out. On top of that, I was selling to grumpy old people who were always on supplemental security income as their only income source and couldn't really afford another bill anyway. I think that just was unethical. I hated it and practically had a nervous breakdown after 3 months of doing it. Glad I moved elsewhere in sales. Story 2. Spending time in one of those laboratories, taking all sorts of drugs and getting poked with needles, and doing blood tests every couple of hours pays several thousands of dollars. But man, it can really mess you up physically and mentally. Story 3. Tricking elderly individuals into ordering a $4.95 face cream and then concealing in the terms and conditions that if they do not cancel within 4 days, typically before the poor quality face cream arrives, they will be charged $115 a month for more. Subsequently, refusing to refund the money after they notice, citing the terms and conditions. Story 4. Increasing the price of drugs by 550 times. When Turing Pharmaceuticals CEO Martin Shkreli raised the price of Daraprim, a critical medication, by more than 550 times its original cost, his reasoning managed to convince no one but himself. Story 5. Prey on disadvantaged people by giving bad loans. The banks that approved all those loans that eventually messed up the housing market didn't really lose anything compared to people who had to foreclose on their homes and suffer the aftermath. At least that's how I see it. But I'm a simple man, not very smart, and am open to other viewpoints to better my understanding of the world. Story 6. Exploitation of underprivileged people, for example, fast fashion, poor-quality Amazon products, outsourcing customer service, and so on, is a significant issue. These people are getting paid pennies for hours of work. It's atrocious. Story 7. Would you bribe politicians to allow you to sell products that harm the environment and poison people? Do you maintain a monopoly on news sources to ensure that only one political party's message is promoted? Story 8. This comes to mind. The Great Stork Derby was a contest held from 1926 to 1936. Female residents of Toronto, Ontario, Canada, competed to produce the most babies in order to qualify for an unusual bequest in a will. Story 9. Corporate lawyers are fighting against unionization. This is common among lawyers in general. Consider the advertisements on the radio that discuss the case of underpaid DoorDash drivers, for example. Money ends up going to lawyers instead of the people who genuinely earned it. It's shameful. However, it seems all you need to do is send a text message, and supposedly, you can get paid. Story 10. Buy up scarce housing, evict the residents, and resell for huge profits. Or really, profiteering on any scarce necessity, water during a drought, food during a famine, medical supplies during a health crisis or epidemic. In other words, profiting from the suffering of other people. Sure, some places have laws against such behavior, but many or most do not or barely enforce them. Story 11. Imagine a deity of your choice appeared to you and asked you to write a book. Transform that book into a religion. Gain tax-exempt status. Recruit members and indoctrinate them into donating a minimum of 10% of their income. Story 12. Dad bought an investment property. It was the middle house in a row of 3 in a suburb where almost every other house had been demolished and replaced by blocks of units. It was his plan to hold it for a while until a developer approached him and the other owners to buy them all out. Some guy called him up and wanted to buy, but with a long settlement date. It turns out he was just trying to buy all 3 houses to on-sell to a developer, and the long settlement was to give him time to convince the owners of the other 2 houses to accept his offer. Totally legal, but he was in effect setting himself up to be the expensive middleman in a process where any of the owners of the houses could get together and approach a developer themselves. In the end, The deal fell through because the height of the water table made the site unsuitable for whatever the developer he had lined up was planning. Story 13. Using your wealth and influence, which you obtained by exploiting other people's hard work, to bribe politicians so you can pay the people whose hard work made you wealthy and influential less money. Story 14. One of the worst legal things people can do for money is exploit loopholes in the financial system, such as predatory lending or payday loans. These practices legally trap people in cycles of debt with outrageous interest rates, but they're still allowed by law in many places. Story 15. Continuing to try to scam people on Facebook. I get 24 people a day asking what I would do if someone deposited any amount onto my account. Or, it's someone who's hacked one of my friends' accounts and starts a conversation with me, beginning with, "Hey, how have you been? I've been thinking about you lately. How have you been doing?" So, I respond immediately with, "Ah, darn, you need money again? Damn, I only have 2,000 left, but I can send you at least 1,500 right now." They are always super excited. I play with them for as long as I have time for, then let them have it. Usually by letting them know how much of a scumbag they actually are and to get a real job. They almost always do not stop, so I end it with a Googled picture of a middle finger telling them to go away. Laughing out loud. I've got glioblastoma stage 4 brain cancer and usually have plenty of time on my hands since I'm disabled now. It's actually quite entertaining to me now. Laughing my ass off. Story 16. Due to reasons, my feet are completely numb. I can't feel anything at all. I could step on a nail and not feel it. I could also rip my toenails off in some sort of grotesque video and sell it online for a lot of money to the right audience. I haven't. I won't. Probably. But I could if I wanted to, which I don't, I think. Story 17. I recently saw news that a Southeast Asian country prohibits minors under the age of 18 from working. So many girls make money through prostitution, but this behavior is legal, which sounds very weird. Story 18. Harass people for debt that was bought that was never actually owed in the first place. Legally harassing people is a wild business venture. A family member backed into my rental car, and their insurance paid what it was legally obligated to pay. The rental company tried to bill them for more, but the family member's insurance declined. The rental company then sold the debt, and they harassed me for years. Story 19. Run a hospital. They all become profit-driven and greedy. They don't care about their patient care. They only care about the bottom line. It makes me angry. Story 20. Defense lawyer for someone whom you know is guilty of something heinous, and you're genuinely trying to get them off the hook. I'm aware that lawyers are sometimes assigned. That's not what I'm talking about here. Story 21. Medical insurance is a parasitic blight on humanity. I don't care if you just mow the lawn there. Every penny of your paycheck came from someone who didn't get the care they needed. They provide nothing but bureaucracy and heartache. All the people at the top should be thrown in prison like the thieving murderers that they are. Story 22. What makes me absolutely nuts is how much sports betting has been legalized. You can't watch a single event without FanDuel or some stupid sports betting thing.